The grand meeting hall of the Celestial Alliance was quiet. 200 alien leaders sat in their seats, waiting. Their eyes were fixed on the entrance door. Today was different from their usual meetings. Today, they would hear from Admiral Ta-1, one of their greatest war heroes. The large doors opened slowly. Admiral Ta-1 walked in. His blue tentacles moved gently as he walked. His silver uniform shone under the bright lights. The medals on his chest showed his many victories in battle. But something was different about him today. His usual confidence was gone. His 3 eyes looked worried, and his tentacles trembled slightly. Honored members of the council, Ta-1 began, his voice deep but shaky. I am here to tell you about the humans. You need to know the truth about them. About what happened in the Helios campaign. Some council members laughed quietly. Humans were new to space travel. Many thought they were weak and simple, but they stopped laughing when they saw how serious Ta-1 looked. It began 3 cycles ago. Ta-1 continued. I commanded the 7th Fleet. We were the strongest fleet in the Alliance. We had never lost a battle, never failed a mission. The Helios campaign was supposed to be simple, just another expansion mission. The Admiral closed his eyes, remembering that day. The memory was still fresh in his mind. The bridge of the flagship Eternal Light was busy with activity. Officers moved quickly between their stations, checking readings and sending reports. First Officer Du-hyun approached Admiral Ta-1's command chair. Du-hyun was young for his rank, but he was smart, very smart. Admiral, Du-hyun said quietly, his green skin looking paler than usual. The energy readings from the 3rd planet are strange. Ta-1 turned his middle eye to look at the readings. Explain. Their technology level doesn't match our records, Du-hyun said. The humans are developing faster than any species we've seen before. Much faster. He paused. Maybe we should study them more before we attack. Ta-1 waved one tentacle dismissively. They've barely left their planet, Du-hyun. Their ships are primitive. Their weapons are weak. We've conquered worlds for 10,000 cycles. What can these humans do against us? Those words would come back to haunt him. The 7th Fleet moved forward, 500 ships strong. The best ships in the Alliance. Their weapons could destroy planets. Their shields could stop anything. Or so they thought. As they approached the human solar system, Ta-1 watched the main screen. The 3rd planet, Earth, grew larger. It looked peaceful. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown land. Home to billions of humans. Send the standard warning message, Ta-1 ordered. Tell them to surrender or be destroyed. This was normal procedure. Most species surrendered when they saw the fleet. It was the smart choice. Officer Kang Dae sent the message. They waited. 1 minute passed, then 5, then 10. Admiral, Kang Dae called out. We're receiving a response. Put it on the main screen, Ta-1 ordered. The screen showed a human, female, Ta-1 thought, though he wasn't sure. She wore a dark uniform with silver markings. Her face was calm. This is Admiral Hae-Nul of the Earth Defense Force, she said. Her voice was translated perfectly by their computers. We've received your message. Here is our answer. Earth is our home. We will defend it. If you want war, you will get war. But know this, you're not the first to threaten us. You're not the first to think we're weak. All those who came before you learned their mistake. We give you one chance to leave. After that, what happens is your choice. The transmission ended. The bridge was silent. Then Ta-1 laughed. Many officers joined him. Such brave words from such a primitive species. Their scans showed only a few hundred human ships, small ships, weak ships. This would be easy. Send the attack order, Ta-1 commanded. All ships, move forward. Show these humans what real power looks like. The 7th Fleet moved toward Earth. Their weapons powered up, their shields strengthened. Victory was certain. But First Officer Du-hyun wasn't laughing. He was watching the energy readings from Earth. They were changing, growing stronger. And something else was happening, something that didn't make sense. "Admiral," Du-hyun said urgently, "the human ships, they're moving." "Of course they're moving," Taiwan said, "probably running away." "No, sir, they're not running. They're—" Du-hyun's voice trailed off as he stared at his screen. The human ships were forming a pattern that looked like a smile. Du-hyun whispered, "Their fleet is forming the shape of a smile." Before Taiwan could respond, the sensors screamed warnings. The human ships were accelerating. Fast, too fast. The G-forces should have killed their crews instantly, but they kept coming. And they were still smiling. That was when Admiral Taiwan learned his first lesson about humans. They did things that should be impossible. It was also when he realized something else, something that made his tentacles go cold. The humans weren't afraid, not even a little bit. They were excited. In the council chamber, Taiwan paused his story. The room was completely silent now. No one was laughing anymore. That, he said quietly, was just the beginning. What happened next? He shuddered. What happened next would change everything we thought we knew about warfare, about courage, about the limits of what living beings can do. He looked at each council member in turn. "You think you understand power because you have advanced weapons. You think you understand war because you've won battles. But you don't understand humans. Not yet." His voice grew stronger. "Let me tell you what happened when those smiling ships reached our fleet. Let me tell you why, to this day, I still wake up trembling from the memory." The council leaned forward, waiting to hear more. They had no idea that this story would change their view of the galaxy forever. No idea that after today, the word human would never again be spoken without a touch of fear. And somewhere, on a distant Earth, humans were still smiling. Admiral Taiwan drank some water before continuing his story to the council. His tentacles had stopped shaking, but his 3 eyes still showed fear as he remembered what happened next. "The human ships didn't just survive the high speeds," he said. "They turned those speeds into a weapon. We had never seen anything like it." The bridge of the eternal light filled with warning sounds. The human ships moved in ways that broke all known rules of space combat. They twisted and turned at speeds that should have killed their crews. But they kept coming. "Impossible," First Officer Du-hyun whispered. "Their bodies should be crushed by the G-forces. Fire all weapons," Taiwan ordered. "Stop them before they reach our lines." The space between the fleets lit up with energy beams and plasma bolts. The Alliance ships fired thousands of shots. Their targeting computers were perfect. Their weapons were the strongest in known space. But the human ships didn't try to block the shots. They didn't even try to dodge them all. Instead, they did something that made Taiwan's stomach turn. They danced. There was no other word for it. The human ships spun and rolled and twisted. When they couldn't dodge a shot, they turned so it hit them at an angle, sliding off their simple metal hulls. They kept moving, kept coming closer, and they were still in that terrible smile formation. "Admiral," Officer Kang Dae shouted, "they're targeting our engines." The human ships fired their weapons, simple projectiles, pieces of metal thrown at high speed. The Alliance shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not solid objects. The projectiles passed through the shields like they weren't there. 20 Alliance ships lost engine power in the first minute. 50 more in the second minute. The humans had studied their targets well. Then came the next surprise. "Admiral," Du-hyun called out, his voice shaking. "The human ships, they're launching smaller ships, hundreds of them." Taiwan watched in horror as tiny one-person fighters poured out of the human ships. They were even faster than the larger ships. They flew between the Alliance vessels, firing more of those simple metal projectiles. "This isn't possible," Taiwan said. "No living being can handle those speeds. The G-forces, That's when the transmission came. It was playing on all channels. Music, human music. It had a strong beat and what sounded like electric string instruments, and words in the human language that translated to danger zone. They're playing music during battle? Do-hyun asked, confused. Then the human fighters started doing something new, something worse. They started singing along. The sound of hundreds of human pilots singing while they fought filled the Alliance communication channels. They sounded happy. They sounded excited. They sounded like they were having fun. "Sir," Kang Dae shouted, "they're boarding the disabled ships." Small human transport ships attached themselves to the Alliance vessels that had lost engine power. They cut through the hulls with simple thermal tools. Alliance soldiers reported humans in powered armor entering their ships. That's when they learned another terrible truth about humans. In close combat, in the tight corridors of a spaceship, humans were devastating. Their dense bones and strong muscles, evolved on a high-gravity world, made them incredibly powerful. Their reaction speeds, honed by millions of years as pursuit predators, made them almost impossible to hit. The humans had a leader in these boarding actions, Captain Jadian. The Alliance soldiers who survived told stories about her. How she moved like water through the corridors. How she could take hits that would kill most species and keep fighting. How she laughed as she fought. "Fall back," Taiwan ordered. "All ships, emergency retreat." But it was too late. The human ships had surrounded them. Their smile formation had turned into a sphere, trapping the Alliance fleet in the middle. A new transmission came in. Admiral Hae-Nul appeared on the screen again. She was still calm, but now she was smiling too. "Surrendered Alliance ships will be treated well," she said. "Their crews will be safe and comfortable. Those who continue to fight," she shrugged, "well, that's their choice. You have 5 minutes to decide." Taiwan looked at his fleet status. Half his ships had lost engine power. A third had been boarded. The rest were trapped. And the humans were still singing. "How?" he asked. "How did you know our shield weakness? How do you move so fast? How do you survive the G-forces?" Hae-Nul's smile grew wider. "We've been fighting each other for thousands of years," she said. "We learned a lot about war, about pushing our limits, about turning weaknesses into strengths." She paused, "and about having fun while doing it." Fun. Taiwan couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You think war is fun." "Not war," Hae-Nul corrected him. "Competition. Challenge. Pushing ourselves beyond what others think is possible. That's what humans live for." She looked at something off-screen. 4 minutes left, by the way. In the end, Taiwan gave the surrender order. He had no choice. The greatest fleet in the Alliance had been defeated in less than an hour. As promised, the humans treated their prisoners well. Too well. They asked questions about everything. They wanted to learn about Alliance technology, culture, biology. They were endlessly curious. And they kept smiling. In the council chamber, Taiwan saw the fear in the other leaders' eyes. Good. They needed to be afraid. "But that wasn't the worst part," he said. "The worst part came when we saw their training facilities, when we learned how they prepared for space combat." He closed his eyes, remembering what they had discovered. They have devices called centrifuges that spin them at high speeds to practice handling forces. They have games that simulate space combat. Their children play these games. Their pilots train in small atmospheric craft that pull many times their normal gravity. He opened his eyes and looked at the council. "They made entertainment out of preparing for war," he said. "They turned training into games. They found ways to enjoy what other species consider torture." One council member raised a hand. "But surely they can't keep advancing at this pace. Surely they must have reached their limits." Taiwan laughed. It was not a happy sound. "Limits," he said. "Let me tell you what happened when we captured one of their scientists. Let me tell you about Dr. Yuni and what we learned about human adaptation. The council settled in to hear more. They had thought the story couldn't get more frightening. They were wrong. The council chamber grew colder as Admiral Taiwan began the next part of his story. His middle eye focused on a distant point, remembering. "We thought capturing their research facility would give us an advantage," he said. "We were wrong. So wrong. That's where we met Dr. Yuni, and where we learned the most frightening truth about humans." The research facility on Mars fell easily. Too easily, Taiwan thought later. At the time, he was just happy to have a victory after the fleet's defeat. The facility's defenders surrendered quickly, and among the captured scientists was Dr. Yuni. She was small for a human, with short black hair and round glasses. She didn't look dangerous. That was their first mistake. "This is amazing." Those were her first words upon seeing the Alliance soldiers. Not fear, not anger, just pure excitement. She immediately started asking questions about their biology, their technology, their spaceship designs. The guards didn't know how to handle it. They were supposed to be intimidating. Instead, their prisoner was treating them like fascinating research subjects. First Officer Du-hyun came to interrogate her. He found her in her cell, writing complex equations on the wall with a piece of chalk someone had foolishly given her. "Dr. Yoon-hee," Du-hyun said firmly, "you will tell us about human weapons technology." She turned around, eyes bright with interest. "Oh yes, but first, can you explain how your artificial gravity works? I have a theory about the energy field distribution, but I'd love to confirm it. Also, the material of your ship's hull. Is it a crystalline structure or more of a metallic composite?" Do-hyun blinked all three eyes in confusion. "We are interrogating you. You are our prisoner." Of course," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "But think how much more productive we could be if we worked together. Your technology is fascinating, but there's room for improvement. For example, your ship's engine cooling system is only operating at 60% efficiency. I could help you improve that." "How do you know about our cooling system?" She pointed to her equations on the wall. "Simple thermodynamic analysis based on your engine's heat signature. The mathematical pattern was obvious once I mapped it out." "Oh, that reminds me. Your number system is base 12, isn't it? That explains so much about your computer architecture." Do-hyun stared at the equations. They were correct. All of them. She had figured out fundamental principles of their technology just by observation. But that was only the beginning. Within a week, Dr. Yoon-hee had drafted designs for improving their engine efficiency by 40%. Within 2 weeks, she had found a way to strengthen their shields against physical projectiles. She did this all from her cell, with just chalk and her mind. "The most fascinating thing," she told Do-hyun during one of their many conversations, "is how different our approaches to technology are. You perfect one solution, and stick with it. We humans like to try everything, mix different approaches, break things apart to see how they work. Sometimes we succeed, sometimes we fail, but we always learn." That's when Strategic Commander Sunmai launched her counterattack. The humans had been watching, learning, adapting, while Dr. Yoon-hee kept the Alliance forces distracted with technological insights. Human forces had been studying their every move. They attacked with ships that now had shields against Alliance energy weapons. Their projectile weapons now carried electromagnetic pulses that could bypass Alliance defenses. They had taken everything they had learned from their defeats and turned it into victory. The Mars facility fell back to human control in less than a day. As Alliance forces retreated, Dr. Yoon-hee left one last message for Do-hyun. "Thank you for teaching me so much. I've already shared everything I learned with Earth's scientists. Your technology will help us reach the stars faster than ever." Isn't that exciting? In the council chamber, Taiwan let his words sink in. "Do you understand now?" he asked. "Every defeat teaches them. Every setback makes them stronger. Their short lives force them to adapt quickly, to innovate constantly." He gestured with his tentacles in frustration. While we perfect one way of doing things over centuries, they try thousands of approaches in decades. Many fail, yes, but they don't fear failure. They embrace it. They learn from it. A council member spoke up. But surely there must be a limit to how much they can learn, how fast they can adapt. Taiwan shook his head slowly. They have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. When we attacked, we became that necessity. We thought we were their doom. Instead, we became their inspiration. He brought up a holographic display showing human technological progress. Before we attacked, they had barely reached their moon. Now, just 3 cycles later, they have ships that can match our best vessels. They've improved our own technology in ways we never imagined. And they're still learning, still adapting, still hungry for more knowledge. The display showed more data, human expansion into space, new colonies, new ships, new technologies. But the worst part, Taiwan continued, the truly terrifying part, is that they're having fun doing it. Dr. Yoon, he wasn't an exception. She was typical. Humans don't just adapt because they have to. They adapt because they want to, because they enjoy it. He showed another image, a human school. Children learning about space travel, playing with toy spaceships, drawing pictures of alien worlds. They're teaching their children about us, about space, about the endless possibilities out there. Their young ones dream about exploring the galaxy, meeting new species, learning new things. He paused. And if those new things try to stop them, well, you've seen what happens. The council was silent for a long moment. Finally, one of the eldest members spoke. You mentioned their military leader, Strategic Commander Sun Mai. Tell us about the final battle. Tell us how it ended. Taiwan's tentacles trembled again. The final battle, he whispered. Yes, that's when we learned the last and most important lesson about humans. That's when we learned why they are truly dangerous. He straightened in his chair, preparing to tell the final part of his story. The part that would change the galaxy forever. Let me tell you about Admiral Da Hyun, and how he showed us that everything we thought we knew about human warfare was wrong. Let me tell you about the day we learned that we hadn't seen even a fraction of what humans could do when they stopped playing and got serious. The council leaned forward, both dreading and needing to hear the end of the story. They didn't know it yet, but after today the alliance would never be the same. And somewhere out there, humans were still learning, still adapting, still reaching for the stars. And they were still smiling. Admiral Taiwan's tentacles had stopped trembling. Now they moved with purpose as he prepared to tell the final part of his story. The council chamber was completely silent. Even the air filters seemed quieter than usual. You think you've understood the threat from my story so far, Taiwan said quietly. You haven't. Everything I've told you, the space battles, the captured scientist, the quick adaptation, that was humans playing, having fun, enjoying the challenge. He leaned forward. Then we made them angry. The Alliance Supreme Command had seen the reports. They knew about the fleet's defeat. They knew about Dr. Yoon-hee's escape. They knew humans were dangerous. Their response, send more ships, 10 times more. The largest fleet ever assembled. Taiwan remembered the day clearly. He stood on the bridge of a new flagship, watching 5,000 Alliance ships gather. Surely this would be enough. Surely humans couldn't stand against such power. Then Admiral Da Hyun's message arrived. The human admiral's face appeared on every screen in the Alliance fleet. He wasn't smiling. That was the first warning sign. You're still here, Da Hyun said simply. Still in our solar system. Still threatening our home. He sighed. We tried to be nice. We tried to show you we could be friends. We even share our ideas for improving your ships. He shook his head. But you just won't leave us alone. So now we have to stop playing. The transmission ended. For a moment, nothing happened. Then space itself seemed to change. Hundreds of points of light appeared around the Alliance fleet. Wormholes. The humans had mastered wormhole technology. Not just mastered it, they had improved it. The holes were stable, controlled, and exactly where the humans wanted them. Impossible, Du-hyun whispered. They couldn't have learned this so quickly. It took us thousands of years to understand wormhole physics. But they had. Dr. Yoon-hee's equations on her cell wall hadn't just been about engine cooling. They had been the key to understanding Alliance wormhole technology. And humans had taken that knowledge further in 3 months than the Alliance had in 3,000 years. Through the wormholes came the human ships. New ships, different ships. They had taken every lesson from every battle, every scrap of knowledge from Dr. Yoon-hee, every bit of data they could gather, and built something new. The human ships were smaller than before, faster, more agile. Their hulls were made of materials the Alliance sensors couldn't even identify, and there were thousands of them. But that wasn't the worst part. Your sensors are picking up our new ships. Admiral Dahyun's voice came through again, but not all of them. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our ability to build better weapons. It's our ability to think differently, to see solutions others miss. That's when the Alliance fleet's sensors detected something else. Something moving between their ships. Something their sensors could barely see. Stealth ships. Hundreds of them. They had been there the whole time, hiding in the shadow of the larger fleet. Waiting. The battle that followed wasn't really a battle. It was a demonstration. The human ships moved in perfect coordination. When Alliance ships fired, the humans were already gone. When Alliance commanders tried to predict human movements, the humans did something completely different. Every Alliance tactic was met with 2 or 3 human counters. You see, Dahyun's voice came through again, calm even as his ships tore through the Alliance fleet. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. We've learned every trick, every strategy, every way to win. And we've learned every way to lose too. That's important. You learn more from losing than from winning. The human ships struck from every direction. The stealth ships disabled Alliance engines. The wormhole ships appeared and disappeared, hitting hard and vanishing before they could be targeted. The fast attack ships danced through the Alliance formation, causing chaos. You thought our first battles showed what we could do. Dahyun continued. That was us learning. Experimenting. Having fun. But when we need to, his voice hardened. When we really need to, we can do so much more. In 20 minutes, half the Alliance fleet was disabled. In 40 minutes, the other half was trapped. No Alliance ship had managed to even damage a human vessel. Then came the final surprise. Look at your ship's engines, Dahyun said. Really look at them. Alliance engineers checked their readings. What they found shocked them to their cores. The humans hadn't just copied Alliance technology. They had found its deepest flaws. Flaws the Alliance hadn't discovered in thousands of years of use. Your engine design has a fundamental weakness, Dahyun explained. A tiny flaw in the power distribution. Nothing serious in normal use. But if someone knows exactly where to hit it. He paused. Well, we could disable your entire fleet with a single command right now. To prove his point, he did just that. Every Alliance ship's engine flickered for exactly 1 second. That was a warning, Dahyun said. A demonstration. We could shut them down completely. Leave you stranded in space. But we won't. Because humans aren't just good at fighting. We're good at making friends too. When people let us. In the council chamber, Taiwan finished his story. We surrendered, of course. We had no choice. But the humans surprised us one last time. He smiled slightly. They offered peace. Real peace. They shared their improvements to our technology. They helped us make our ships better, safer. They asked only one thing in return. What did they ask for? A council member whispered. Knowledge, Taiwan replied. They wanted to learn everything we could teach them. About our history, our science, our cultures. Their curiosity was still there, even after the fighting ended. Maybe especially after it ended. He stood up, his tentacles moving gracefully now. So yes, humans are dangerous. More dangerous than any species we've ever encountered. Not because they're stronger, or faster, or more advanced, but because they never stop learning, never stop trying, never stop pushing their limits. He looked at each council member in turn. But that same drive, that same endless curiosity and determination, makes them the best allies you could ever have. If you let them be your friends, they'll help you reach heights you never imagined. If you make them your enemies. He shuddered. Well, you've heard my story. The council was quiet for a long time. Finally, the head counselor spoke. What would you have us do, Admiral? Taiwan smiled. Do what I did. Go to Earth. Meet them. Talk to them. Share knowledge with them. Learn from them. His eyes twinkled. And whatever you do, don't make them angry. Because what I've told you today, that's not even close to their full potential. They're still learning, still growing, still reaching for the stars. He turned to leave, then stopped at the door. Oh, and one more thing. He looked back at the council. They're teaching their children everything they've learned. Their next generation will be even more capable, even more curious, even more unstoppable. As Taiwan left the chamber, the council members looked at each other in silence. They had come today expecting a simple war story. Instead, they had learned something that would change their civilization forever. Humans weren't just another species to be conquered or ignored. They were something new, something different, something that could either lift the galaxy to new heights or bring even the mightiest empires to their knees. And somewhere out there, on 1,000 worlds and ships, humans were still learning, still growing, still pushing the boundaries of what was possible. And yes, they were still smiling.